So the middle of chapter 7. Here we go. Congress voted on July 2nd. With a little arm twisting by Ben, the vote came out strongly for independence. The 13 colonies were now the United States of America. Congress approved the Declaration 2 days later. Ever since, Americans have honored that day, July 4th, 1776, as the country's birthday. At the signing of the Declaration, Ben reportedly made a famous comment. John Hancock was president of Congress. He wanted everyone to cooperate. "We must all hang together," he said. "Yes," answered Ben, "we must all hang together, or most assuredly we shall all hang separately." He meant that they must work together, or else, if America lost the war, England might hang each leader by the neck. Here's a picture of the Continental Congress, which is where they signed and decided about the Declaration. There's more famous pictures of that too that you'll see. Probably actually in 4th grade you'll see it. Ben was happy about independence, but his heart was heavy for personal reasons. Many families, including the Franklins, were split by the war. Ben begged his son to quit as New Jersey governor. He wanted William to side with America. The father and son wrote letters back and forth. They had some heart-to-heart talks. Ben could not convince William to leave his post. He had become an English gentleman, just as Benjamin had wanted. One by one, England's colonial governors were removed from office. They were replaced with Americans. William was thrown out of office. He was put in jail in a filthy cell where he nearly died. Still, William Franklin stayed loyal to England. So if you missed that in the chapters before, basically Ben Franklin and his son had different views on what America should be. So they disagreed on things. Father and son were disagreeing. All right, here we go. "Nothing ever hurt me so much," Ben said about his son siding with Britain. A word from Ben to Congress might have freed William, but Ben never spoke up for his son. The United States was fighting for its life. He felt that special treatment for William would be unfair. In Britain, people were more afraid of Benjamin Franklin than of George Washington and his army. Rumors spread that Benjamin was a wizard. He had invented weapons that could destroy all of England. He had a tiny device that could turn buildings to ash. He had reflecting mirrors that would burn the British Navy. He had an electrical machine that would flip England upside down like a pancake. Of course, Ben had no such weapons, and for quite some time it looked like America would lose the war. Then, in the fall of 1776, Congress sent Franklin overseas on a mission that could decide the war. He was to convince France to help America fight England. Once in France, Franklin found that British spies were everywhere. He couldn't always meet with French leaders. Sometimes messages had to be written in invisible ink and signed with secret code names. But after a year of work, Ben got what he came for. France joined the American side in early 1778. Alone, the young United States might have been beaten by England. Things changed after France stepped in. French money, troops, and ships and weapons helped the United States win its war for independence in 1783. Franklin signed the peace treaty made that year. Ben wanted to go home after the war was won, but Congress asked him to stay in France. There, he would be a spokesman for the new country. Finally, in 1785, Congress said that he could leave. That summer, he went to Southampton, England, to sail for home. William Franklin had been set free during the war. He had fled to England. William learned that his father was in Southampton. Benjamin was 79 years old. William was 44. The father and son, who had flown the kite in the storm, saw each other one last time. Billy tried to make up, but his father refused to forgive him for having sided with England. Ben arrived back in Philadelphia in September of 1785. Ahead of him was a quiet retirement, or so he thought. Here's a picture of the Liberty Bell. I'm just going to read out what it says. It says, "The Liberty Bell was cast in London in 1751 to celebrate Pennsylvania's original 1701 Constitution. The bell cracked soon after, but was recast and hung in the Pennsylvania State House, where it rang on important occasions. It rang on July 8th of 1776 after the first public reading of the Declaration of Independence. It later developed another crack and was last rung in 1846. So again, there's the picture of it. And there's like a giant crack that goes right down the middle. And it's still there today. That crack is still there. It's like famous for it. All right, chapter 8, A Rising Sun. Ben returned home a hero. He landed at the spot where he had entered Philadelphia as a teenaged runaway. This time, cannons saluted him. Bells were rung. Speeches were made honoring the man who had done so much to win America's freedom. A few weeks later, he was elected governor of Pennsylvania. The new nation was in trouble. The government was weak. There was no national currency, which means money. The army was tiny. If something wasn't done, the country might not last for long. Something was done. A convention was held to make the government stronger. States chose leading men to attend. Ben Franklin of Pennsylvania was one of the delegates. The convention opened in Philadelphia in May 1787. Its members hammered out the new framework of government, the U.S. Constitution. At 81 years old, Franklin was the oldest delegate. When there were arguments, Ben told funny stories to calm things down. He also helped solve a big problem. The large states wanted to have the most say in government. The small states feared that they wouldn't have much power. Franklin helped work a solution. In the House of Representatives, large states would have more numbers than small states. But in the Senate, each state, regardless of size, would have 2 members. Ben Franklin and the other founding fathers signed the Constitution on September 17, 1787. As they did so, Ben pointed to the chair in which George Washington sat. On the chair was a picture of the sun. During the convention, Ben had wondered whether it was supposed to be rising or setting. He was now so hopeful about the country that he knew. "It is a rising sun," he exclaimed. During his last years, Ben lived with his daughter Sally and her 7 children. He served as the governor of Pennsylvania until 1788. That year, he was 82 years old. But by his own special way of counting, he was only 58. After age 70, Ben had decided not to get any older. So, from then on, with each birthday, he counted a year backwards. One of Ben's final projects was to try to end slavery. He served as president of an anti-slavery society. His very last public act was to sign a paper that was sent to Congress. The paper asked that slavery be stopped. Poor health made Ben spend much of his last 2 years in bed. He passed the time by listening to his grandchildren reciting their lessons. In the spring of 1790, he became very ill. Sally told him that he would live many more years. "I hope not," answered her father. He died a few hours later on April 17th, 1790, at the age of 84. That's pretty old for back then. Tributes came in from around the world. Statues of him were built. Poems, articles, and books were written about him. A saying from France became popular: "He snatched the lightning from the sky and the scepter from the tyrants." Ben Franklin deserved all the praise. He did so much in his long life. His greatest accomplishment is still going strong: the United States, the country he helped to create. The end. So there you have it. The life of Ben Franklin.